If you're serving or working with students in Western PA, there's a good chance you might know today's guest. I got a chance to sit down with the one and only Travis Deans on this episode of the Youth Worker Daily. Hey everybody, welcome to Conversations with Everyday Youth Workers, the podcast of the Youth Worker Daily. My name is Jay Hyam, and here at the Youth Worker Daily, it is our hope to encourage youth workers just like you with tools, tips, and resources so that you thrive in your ministry. And hey, when I ask you to do me a huge favor, if you would, this is episode number 8, I believe. We are just beginning to get a little bit of traction with these podcasts. But I would love it if you would to go ahead and rate us and then share us. You're probably listening either on Podbean or iTunes podcasts. We would love it if you would take just a few seconds to subscribe to wherever it is that you're listening to, whether it's Podbean or iTunes. We would appreciate that. And go ahead and rank us, because if you give us a 4 or 5 star rating, that helps us get the blog and the podcast out there to people. And we want to get out there and share the stories of youth workers with other youth workers. So take a few minutes, leave a comment. We would greatly appreciate that. And as always, if you're listening to this on iTunes or on Podbean, we'd love for you to know that we do have a website, theyouthworkerdaily.com. And on that website, you will get access to the companion blog that goes with this podcast. And on that, you'll find a little bit more information about today's guest, as well as links to various resources that we talk about in this episode. So you're going to want to check us out there at the website. And of course, we're always looking forward to you following along with us on social media. So whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, come and join us, follow along. You can find us at the Youth Worker Daily. That is YTH Worker Daily. And come and be a part of our social community here. We have a great guest today. I'm super excited to be able to sit down and talk with Travis Deans. Travis Deans and I met a number of years ago doing some networking in the Western PA area. And we've stayed in touch. We've worked in networking, and our paths have crossed in a number of different seasons of ministry. But I wanted to get Travis on because Travis is just an amazing youth worker. He seems to know just about everybody in youth ministry in the Western PA area. And there's a good chance that if you are in the Pittsburgh region, you do know Travis, because everybody seems to know who he is. But he has a tremendous ministry connecting with youth workers and encouraging youth workers. But today here on the podcast, we get to hear a little bit of Travis's story, how he got into student ministry, and what he has been doing in the very many years of serving students and their families. But we also get to talk about 2 ministries that he's involved with, one of them being the Pittsburgh Youth Workers Conference, which has been taking place in the Pittsburgh area for about the last 5 or 6 years. And then we talk about another ministry passion of his, and that is the Student Outreach Clubs, which is Travis's organization that reaches students in the schools. It's a program that equips and empowers students to begin and lead on-campus ministry, where they're really doing some really cool stuff and affecting change in the lives of the students, and really being the hands and feet of Jesus on their high school and middle school campuses. So I don't want to take too much longer. I want to get into this conversation. You will hear we had a little bit of connection issues early on in the episode, but you'll find that that'll clear pretty quickly, and I think you'll enjoy today's conversation. So let's jump right in. Here is my conversation with Travis Deans. Hey everybody, an exciting episode of the podcast today, because I get to talk with a longtime friend of mine. I was trying to think back, Travis, just how far back we have gone. I think somewhere around 2008 is where we first met. I was in Somerset and you were in Uniontown, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But it is exciting. So Travis, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast, Conversations with Everyday Youth Workers. Super excited you're here. How are things going with you, my friend?
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here and glad to connect, Jay. It's good to see you.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, it has been a while. We just
especially
had
during this crazy time. It's see anybody.
I know, for real. Like Zoom has been the lifesaver here through all of this. But yeah, we actually had lunch not long ago at Chick-fil-A in Washington, PA. And as I thought about people who I wanted to get onto the podcast, you are definitely one of the ones that I was like, I've got to have you if you're willing. So before I have you introduce yourself, just for our listeners, if you are in the Western PA area, you probably know Travis Deans. Travis Deans is he's the network king for Western PA. He knows everybody, and just about everybody knows Travis Deans. It's kind of fun to walk through the youth ministry circles, and if you say Travis Deans, guarantee someone knows who you are, Travis. So you have a great ministry here to the youth workers in Western PA. So it's been a joy for me to get to know you and to call you a friend. But Travis, as much as I know you, why don't you take a few minutes, tell us about Travis Deans. Who are you? How did you get started in ministry? Where are you? What's happening with your family? Yeah, tell us about student ministry in the eyes of Travis Deans.
Sure. Well, youth ministry had a huge impact on my life as a middle school student. I grew up in a Nazarene church in Confluence, Pennsylvania, which is we're right on the border of Pennsylvania and Maryland. Mm-hmm. And so it was a little church, and we had Wednesday night youth group, and it was it made a huge difference in my life. It was just because it was a small town. There wasn't a lot to do that other than getting in trouble. So, having
hopefully
that
youth group keeps you out of trouble.
Yes, that's right. So having that group was crucial, and it meant a lot. And I had friends who would go to the Creation Festival. And so I remember them taking myself and some other kids to the Creation Festival while I was in high school, which also had a huge impact on my spiritual life. And I was, while in high school, got involved in a parachurch ministry called Teens for Christ, which I'm still part of today. And it was, being in a small town, I was part of the youth ministry, but I had lots of opportunities to do youth ministry. Mm-hmm. And so I did a couple summer internships with Teens for Christ, where I would do activities and Bible study with kids who were younger than me. And again, that was very faith shaping. There's nothing that helps you grow in your faith like exercising your faith and teaching others about your faith and teaching God's word. And so, yeah, right. And so I became a Sunday school teacher for our, I guess back then we called it the youth class or teen class, whatever we called it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, youth ministry had a big impact on my life as a high school student. And I then went to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago and majored in youth ministry there. I was fortunate that my first year there was the first year they offered youth ministry as its own major. Mm-hmm. And so that was fun. It was learned so many incredible things. Some of the youth pastors out there will remember Sun Life. Some of you haven't heard it at all, but if you remember Sun Life, part of my training as a student at Moody was this Sun Life training. It was really foundational, really. I mean, mm-hmm. stuff that's impacted my ministry for the last 25 years. So really, really good experience with that. And Um, and then I came back from Chicago, and I'm about an hour south of the city of Pittsburgh, and I have been at this. I'm at a Christian and Missionary Alliance church, and I've been here the last 24 years. And so it's I've I started out as a volunteer youth leader in the church, and which was it was a great group of kids. It's a small church, about 200 people, but it's it was a great place to get into ministry. I was also working with this Teens for Christ ministry at the same time, and so kind of on simultaneously working with a church youth group, but then also and to help connect youth ministries in our region, connect with each other, and do things together. We started helping kids share their faith in their high schools through these clubs, and so I've been doing those three things the last 24 years.
So what's been what's your total lifespan as a youth worker? So I know it's more than 24.
Yeah, well, I graduated from Moody in '96, so my full time career 24 years, and but I started with Teens for Christ in 1989, so I've been with that ministry as a student, intern, and full time for 30 years, 31 years.
Yeah. I like to bring that up because there are so many youth workers that let me say it this way: there are very few of us that can call youth ministry a career and can say they've gone 20, 25, 30 some years. I'm coming up on, I think I'm in my 29th, so I'm quickly approaching my 30th. So to be able to talk with guys that have made youth ministry a career is something awesome. And I like to share that because I think for youth workers who are just getting into youth ministry, and there are different reasons for getting into it, but I think for those who are hoping to make a career out of it, we can say it is possible. And there are plenty of us guys that are doing it, and 30 years now, and I still love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And you're married. You've got a family.
Right. Yeah, I got 4 kids. We got kind of a late start, so I'm our kids are still kind of young, but we have a daughter, 3 boys, and so we basically we just spend all day trying to find ways to make our kids tired. We just always trying to find a new.
Isn't that the same thing you do at middle school camp?
All that energy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember as a kid, my mom kicking me outside, and go play somewhere. And now I completely understand that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so my wife Judy, she also went to. My wife also went to Moody Bible Institute, but we didn't meet there. We met back here, and found out we had gone to the same school, and that was kind of the the thing we had in common that brought us together. And we've been married for 15 years. So
nice, very nice. So let's talk youth ministry. You've been at this a while. You started sharing a little bit about where you are now, or at least where you've been for the last couple of years, last 24 years. What does your role look like? Because I know it's recently changed. So tell us a little bit about what your current youth ministry status looks like.
Sure, yeah. So I've been the youth pastor at this church since 2010. And I had been in a couple other roles on staff at the church before that, but the church had a youth pastor, and then he left. So in 2010, I took that role on, and but about a year ago, almost a year ago, it became clear to me that we had a middle school guy that I had brought on, and I'm like, this guy is really good. He's got a call from God on his life, And I really think he's going to be a better youth pastor than I am. And so I started thinking, I need to start moving him into this role more and more. We had a summer trip last year to our national youth conference, and so I made sure he was able to come to that, and just did a great job. And then in October, we lost. Well, I should say in last August, we lost our children's pastor, and so there was we were kind of restructuring our staff, and I kind of went to bat for. Hey, we should bring this guy on as our youth director, and as well as, hiring someone part-time for the children. And I convinced our board to create a job description for me as the family life pastor, where I could be in kind of that mentoring and well, supportive and equipping role. But, equipping this guy and the others to really carry the youth ministry. And so that happened in October, this past October, and it was really fun to kind of mentor him into the world of youth ministry. I got to take him to the Youth Specialties convention in Tampa last November, and of course I've been to many of those. And exactly right. Knew how great it was, knew how amazing it was. So it was so much fun. He'd never been to one of these before. So he and his wife came and just introduced this whole big world. It was a blast. It was really fun. And so I'm finding myself more and more, not only in my own church, but in the youth ministry networking that I do, and working with I work with youth pastors kind of all over the greater Pittsburgh region. I'm a volunteer with the National Network of Youth Ministries, and so Western Pennsylvania is just help support networking and encourage youth ministry networking around the region. But I found myself in this position where I'm the old guy now. I'm 46, and so I find myself surrounded by a lot younger guys. And I know my own experience, just to be real personal and transparent in my own experience when I first started. Yeah, thank you. When I first started in my 20s, I had no idea. I thought coming out of Bible college, I thought, man, I got this. I'm going to be able to do great things, and just had huge expectations. But I had no idea in my early 20s the character flaws that were really there. I had no idea the lack of maturity that was there. And so I went through a pretty hard time. Most of my 20s, my early years of ministry were pretty tough. Just realizing, wow, I really have some faults and some character issues that I need God to work on me. And there were times, in my in the church and the other ministry I work with, I just really felt, God hammering away at me. And there were definitely times that I thought, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. It's, I don't know how to, there were definitely times I thought about giving it up for sure. Right. But I knew that if I gave up, in those ministries, I knew that I was just going to run into the same problems wherever I went next, because the problems were inside of me, and I needed God to change me, not necessarily change the situation I was in or the work environment. It was me. And so, these days, as I'm surrounded by younger guys, I feel myself wanting to just encourage them to, I can tell you how many youth pastors I've seen come and go, right? And I know you've seen that too, yep. Right? And they come and they go because ministry's hard. Working with a senior pastor might be difficult. The expectations of the board or parents
Yep.
difficult, and so there's all kind of reasons to bail out of ministry. But I really want to encourage guys who are coming into youth ministry, or pastoral ministry, whatever. Sometimes God is going to lead us into difficult times because he wants to hammer away at the stuff that shouldn't be there. He wants to, I wrote an article about this about 10 years ago. I called it The Hammer and the Anvil. And if you're familiar with Bugs Bunny cartoons, right, you know what an anvil is, because all right, Wile E. Coyote's always getting anvils dropped on his head. I'm dating myself here,
shipping company.
Yes. But during those times, I felt like, man, God, why am I being hammered on so bad? Like, why is this so difficult? Why am I being confronted with my character faults, in such a difficult way? I always found that, in spite of the hammering, God was always the anvil holding me up, right? Whenever a metal worker is, they're hammering away at some piece of metal to mold it into whatever shape it should be, right? They hammer away at it to get rid of the junk that's not supposed to be there, or to shape it into what it's supposed to be. But they do that on that anvil that holds the metal in place. And I found God to be the one who was doing that shaping and that hammering, but also the one who was holding me up, the one who was that secure foundation. And so, I don't know, for me, that's been the key to longevity.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, being in ministry for as many years as you and I have, you don't do that without some pretty intense testing, right?
Absolutely.
And but yeah. So trusting God to take you through those testing times, man, that really matters. Now, clearly there's times when God calls you to other ministries. God calls you to other opportunities. I know, Jay, you have felt God calling you and to new ministries and to new things. So, that's not what I'm talking about. When God calls,
No, right.
You go, right? When God calls, you move. But I just feel like ministry, just think, wow, this is way too hard. And yeah, it is way too hard, but it's God working on us. And if we don't let him do that work where we are, he's just going to have to do it somewhere else.
Absolutely. I think this might be a great segue into talking about maybe some of the ways in which God has hammered those things out in your life. I know for me, I attribute longevity to NYWC, networking, having other youth workers speaking into my life, kind of pulling some of those flaws out. I know I've worked with some great lead pastors who have cared enough about me to walk alongside with me. And when they're having situations, they're there to guide me through those things and help me work through some of that stuff, which is not always the case in a lot of situations. The pastor becomes the bad guy, or the board becomes the bad guy. But but I think some of the things that you are involved in, and you have been involved in, and I've gotten involved in, maybe can help youth workers who feel themselves being, pounded upon or hammered upon. You might find some help in that. I mean, we met again somewhere around 2008, 2009. I don't remember which year, but I remember, I have moved around a number of times, but everywhere I've tried to go, I've tried to have a local network to be a part of. And I remember the first time we met, it was to talk about starting a network in the Somerset County area. So I want to transition over into, what are some ways in your career that you have found the hammer of God, so to speak, pounding on you, but yet how have you worked some of those things out to stay in ministry? Because you've had to have somebody that you've talked with, you've had to have somebody that you've confided in, you've had to have somebody to come alongside of you. I'm just wondering if that might not be why you are so involved in networking and connecting with other youth workers.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that, if you feel like you're alone, like you're the only one going through something, it's so much easier to throw in the towel and just give it up, right?
Yeah.
If you feel like, man, I can't believe I'm going through this, and you have no connection to others in similar situations or who have gone through similar things, yeah, it's going to be much easier to give it up. And so that's one of the huge benefits of youth ministry networking is that, you can connect with others who know exactly the feelings of disappointment, struggle, frustration that you feel. And, you sit around a table with some guys and you suddenly realize, whoa, I'm not the only one going through this. I'm not the only one who is frustrated. I'm not the only one who has to wait for a kid's parents to pick up their kid for half an hour. I'm not the only one who's I'm not the only one who has expectations put on me that I think are unfair.
Yeah.
And it gives you perspective. That perspective is invaluable. And so, as you mentioned, the Youth Specialties Convention. You sit in a room with 5,000 other youth pastors, and all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, this thing is bigger than me, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? If all these people can do this, I can do this. And the enemy's strategy for forever, since the Garden of Eden, has been divide and conquer, right?
Absolutely.
If you can divide people, I mean, we see that happening in our country right now, right? If you can divide people, you can conquer them easily. And there's nothing more vulnerable to the enemy's schemes than a youth worker who's isolated and alone. But when you create those connections where not only where you're sharing common, sharing those common frustrations or struggles, whatever. But if you're connected with other youth pastors that you're praying with, that you're building friendships with, that you're working together with on things, man, that just gives you strength.
Absolutely.
That you just didn't know you had, that you just didn't know is available. And that's the whole thing with the body of Christ. That's why God gives us each other, is because there is strength and life in that connectedness. And so it's definitely, I don't know if there's been a scientific study on this, but anecdotally speaking, youth workers definitely last longer.
Absolutely.
When they're connected to others. And so yeah, definitely encourage that.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful. My first full-time job was in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, and we had just moved in. We were living in this little tiny 2-bedroom. It was a shack. We literally lived in a shack, and we referred to it lovingly as the shack. But to the neighbor to the one side was one of the other local churches, and they had just hired a youth worker who was living in they had 2 manses. And so the pastor lived in one beautiful big brick manse, and this single girl youth worker was living in this other huge, beautiful manse. And we had this little teeny tiny shack with 2 kids, but the neighbors to the right of the house was another youth worker who was working in a power organization, power ministry in that area. Don Nixon, I'm sure you know that name. But we had no sooner moved in, and Don was right there at our front door knocking, saying, I heard you're the new youth guy over here. We have a group that meets. You got to come and be a part of it. And that really was the saving grace, I think, because it introduced me right away to the significance and the importance of plugging in with a local network. And that I've made that part of my ministry for these last 20 some years, to make sure I have that connection. Because I agree with you. You want to stick it out. You need people to stick it out with you.
Yeah.
And to go to youth workers for that understanding and that support. I mean, there's no better place to go. That leads me now into your involvement in Western PA with youth workers. I don't know how much you have started, but I know you are super involved with a number of things that are happening in and around Western PA one of those things being networking. So maybe talk a little bit about your role with National Network of Youth Workers and kind of how that has helped you connect and work through some things, really creating a ministry that I hate that I moved to Wheeling. Well, let me say that again. I'm glad I moved to Wheeling, but I hate that I'm no longer part of that Western PA culture of networking there. But tell me a little bit about what it looks like for you to be involved in networking in Western PA.
Yeah, sure. Well, the Pittsburgh region, the city of Pittsburgh has actually had a fantastic youth pastors network. I think it's been in existence 40 years now.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it's now called Pittsburgh Kids Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And they just
the
do
old PYN, the Pittsburgh Youth Network.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They do just great stuff: camps, summer camps, retreats, a monthly youth pastors event, first Friday of each month. So there's kind of, in this part of the, this Western Pennsylvania, there's kind of been that culture of networking and connecting for a long time now. And so when I began, about 20 years ago, I discovered the National Network of Youth Ministries. I didn't know what it was until then. And I, their heartbeat was just connecting youth workers, connecting youth ministries. And I thought, yes, that's what I want to do. And so the ministry that I was with, Teens for Christ, it was kind of a blank slate at that time because there were just a number of changes that happened before I came along, and we kind of landed, on two things that we really wanted to do. One was to connect youth pastors and churches in doing some things together that were fun and made sense, and then also addressing the one big thing that all churches have in common, which is that we all have students in public schools, and how do we reach them? So we began bringing youth pastors together and doing some things together. We would do things, see you at the pole events, which we still do to this day. We did we've done lock-ins together, things where
you're
you're
a brave
serving
man for doing those.
Doing things where you serve your community in different ways. We did we had a time for a number of years where we did a kind of a purity type of event. We tried to do things where there's some things, no matter what church you're in or what theological tradition you're from, there's some things that we all want to encourage our students to do, right? We all want to encourage our students to walk with Christ. Right. We all want to encourage our students to share their faith. We all want to encourage our students to honor God in their sexuality and all of that, relationships. So we tried to do some things that were helped evangelism, helped students sharing their faith, but then also things that reinforced those common things that we want to teach students. And so I started networking with youth pastors in Fayette County, which then expanded to Westmoreland County nearby, and then early on then got involved in the Pittsburgh Youth Network, and then now we work with networks kind of all around the Pittsburgh region. There's one in Beaver County, Butler County, which this may or may not mean anything to your listeners, but there's at least 6.
No, go through it, because I if you can name them.
Okay. Well, there's at least 6 or 8 networks: Beaver, Butler, Westmoreland, Fayette, Washington, and Lawrence County. And so those are all in addition to the Pittsburgh Youth Network, which in Pittsburgh you have, like any major city, you have just a huge number of churches, and so it's really its own thing there. But then when you get to those outlying areas, there was a need to we just felt a need to help youth workers connect, and so we don't run all those networks. There are people that lead those and run those, and they do a great job. We just want to support them, encourage them, and just provide ideas. I'll go to a network meeting and just, share some ideas, share some, hey, here's what networks have done in the past. And,
Right.
but more than anything, it's building relationships. It's building connections. And if that results in doing some cool things together, great. But most importantly, we want youth pastors to know that they're not alone in their ministries.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I mean, if you're looking just to do something big with somebody else, that might be a byproduct of it. But the overwhelming importance of networking is to have that camaraderie and companionship and that support network from, men and women who are doing the same thing that you're doing and get. The first time I went to NYWC was back in 1999. It was my first conference. And, back then they had the big, welcome. And, there was this little sketch that was played out by the YS leadership. And it only took me like 2 minutes to realize I was home. Like, just knowing that my wiring wasn't so unique as I thought. Like when I told people I was going to youth ministry as a career, people thought I was nuts. Like you cannot raise a family. And then, that place confirmed for me what that is, that you can have a career and it is a calling. And man, I can just look back over the years and just think and see the faces and the names of so many youth workers who have played a part in my role as a youth worker. It's incredible. And Travis, you're in there too. So
yeah, you think about like Mike Yaconelli, who started Youth Specialties with Wayne Rice. He was a master of making you feel like we understand you. We get you, right? I mean, it's like you said, as soon as you walked in, you got that sense that we get where you're coming from. We hear your heart. That was one of the just amazing things about him. And you really get that feeling now too with Doug Fields and Josh Griffin that you walk in there and these are people who they get you and they so appreciate what you're doing and what, it's a good feeling.
Not necessarily a plug for NNYW or NNY. Yeah, that's it, right? Or NYWC. But we will have their links later on in the show notes after all of this. Hey, so I know the podcast goes out more than just a local thing. But my hope is that there are local youth workers who are listening eventually. So one of the things I want to do is just, can we highlight some of the things that are happening in and around Pittsburgh as ways of youth workers being able to connect? Maybe I'll name it and you can talk about it.
Sure.
I think you're pretty much involved in just about all of these. All right, we already talked about the National Network of Youth Ministries. That is the NNYM, not WNNYM. But what about the Pittsburgh Youth Workers Conference? 5 years old, 6 years old this year, right?
That's right. This will be the sixth one. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what started it and what you guys hope to accomplish with the conference.
Sure. Yeah. So that started in 2014. My friend Doug Rary and I started that. Doug is at Christ Church of Grove Farm. Mm-hmm. And it's a funny story because Doug and his middle school guy were at a conference, one of the big conferences, and they skipped out on a session, and they went to the steakhouse and ran into Walt Mueller and Doug Fields and Duffy Robbins and some of those legends of youth ministry, right?
Yeah.
And talked to those guys and like, hey, we want to have you guys come to Pittsburgh sometime. So Doug told me that story that he had run into them, and I thought, that's cool. So sometime that summer, that was in March, sometime that summer, Duffy Robbins messaged me and said, hey, I'm coming into town, and I was just wondering if you have another event or something else that I could do while I'm there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yes, you're going to be here. Let's do something. I don't care what it is. Let's just do something because that'd be great. He's Duffy Robbins. Let's do something.
For sure.
And so we messaged Walt Mueller and be like, hey, you're not by chance going to be in this area, are you? on this particular weekend. Turned out he was going to be, Walt was going to be here on a Thursday. Duffy was going to be here on a Saturday, and we had Friday. Friday was open. So I'm like, listen, how about, would you two guys be willing to do a youth pastors conference? And yeah, we'll do that. And then we got a number of youth pastors from the area to do breakout sessions. And so we had we had Walt and Duffy as bookend general session speakers, and we had local youth pastors doing breakout sessions in between. And it was great. It was a really fun time. And so over the years we've had Josh Griffin, Chap Clark, Marco's been here.
Marco.
Yeah.
Fields has been there. I don't know if he's been one of the keynotes, but he's shown up a couple times.
Who's that?
Doug.
Oh yeah, Doug was he was our second year, I think. Yep. And so it's been fun to bring people who have that national name recognition to our area. But then also it's been really cool to highlight youth pastors who are just doing a great job. And maybe they have one or two things that are that's like their thing that they really are kind of experts at, and to have them come and teach about those things has been really fun. It's been really cool to highlight people who are just doing a great job in ministry. And so it's kind of been, we feel like it's been kind of a winning formula, that combination of local guys and national level people. So this year we have Tom
Shefchunas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm probably gonna say his name wrong.
How did you say Shefo? Shefchunas. I believe that's how he says it. Shefchunas? I think that's how he says it. Maybe.
So he's originally from the Pittsburgh region.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, North Pittsburgh. Yep.
Yeah, so we're really excited to have him come back. He's with Orange, with Youth Specialties. His role has changed a little bit, I guess it's been a little fluid over the past 5 years, but anyway. And then we're very excited to have our first female general session speaker, and we've tried to get we tried to get Kara Powell for a lot of years, and just September or that time of year has just not worked out for her. But in any case, so we have Virginia Ward coming, and so we're very excited to have Virginia. She's affiliated with Fuller Youth Institute and Orange and a number of other things. And so
I think she showed up on the stage at NYWC once or twice, or it's definitely been a seminar presenter.
Yeah, we were asking Duffy, who would be a great, just asking him for suggestions, and he's like, well, Virginia would be fantastic. And so we're very excited to have her come. And of course, this, Jay, others may or may not, but Duffy Robbins is now in our region.
How crazy is that?
I know, it is crazy.
That's nuts.
So yeah. So it's been a lot of fun to have him in this area the last year or so, and he's been involved in a number of things. And he's part of our team with the Pittsburgh Youth Workers Conference, and he helps MC it, and also to provide insight and feedback and all that jazz. And so, but that has been a lot of fun to do the last few years.
I wanna do another podcast with you and maybe Doug and Duffy if we can get them. Maybe as we get a little closer to this year's conference, but just for the sake of getting the date out there, you guys have you nailed down the dates for this coming year? I believe you have.
Yeah, it's the last Friday of October, which I believe is the October 30th. Whatever that last Friday is, I think it's the 30th though.
Yeah. So circle that on your calendars. And if you're in the Western PA area, I know I've gone the last 3 years, I think, 2 years as an attendee. And then last year I was honored to be asked to lead one of the middle school breakouts, which was totally humbling and exciting. But my plan is to be there this year and to bring leaders with me. So if you're in the Western PA area, circle Friday the 30th of October. And make plans to be there for that. Let me turn the page here. Student outreach clubs. I know this is a huge passion for you, but tell me or tell us the heart behind it and what you're trying to do, And you guys are in a ton of schools now. So maybe just give us an update of what that looks like.
Yeah. So it kind of comes out of my own testimony. When I was in high school, I started a Bible club in my high school, and so that's kind of always been a part of my story. And in 1984, Congress passed this law which made it legal to have for students to start religious clubs in schools. It could be any religion, but Bible clubs kind of became a thing after that. And so in this region, we had schools, a lot of schools with Bible clubs, and we started to I don't know, in the mid early 2000s, we started to really challenge those students. Hey, listen, it's so great that you have a Bible club here, but we think you could really make a difference in the lives of your fellow students. What if this club was a little more outreach focused, and finding fun and creative ways for you guys to share your faith? And so we had a club that had died out, and it was just restarting, and it was kind of an opportunity to kind of start it out in a new way. And we had a network of youth pastors that we met with to kind of help jumpstart this thing. And so that club was Penn Trafford High School, which is just east of Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And so we encouraged them right at the beginning to think of ways, creative and fun ways that you could share your faith with your friends. So we had a girl who, she was on her soccer team, and she really wanted to share her testimony with her teammates. But, how do you do that? Like, how do you bring up Jesus in a way that's not awkward and weird? And so she went to the club and said, can you guys help me? I want to share my testimony with my teammates. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? So what they ended up doing, and we encouraged them to go down this road, but what they ended up doing was they went to the coach and said, hey, can we throw an end of the season party for the girls soccer team? It'd be totally voluntary, just whoever wants to come. But we'd like to celebrate them, celebrate the end of their season. And this girl, Clara, who's on the team, she wants to share her testimony with, her faith story, how her faith has inspired her with the team. Would that be okay? And the coach said, yeah, that'd be great. And so they did that. It went really well. And then they started doing other things. They took Gatorades to the swim team. They did something for the bowling team. The following school year, they did they went to pray with the football team. So that they asked the coach, could we come and pray with the team? And the coach said, yeah, game's at 7. Why don't you guys come at 6? I'll send whoever wants to out on the field. They can pray with you guys. And, basically the whole team goes out to pray with them. And so we started telling these stories to other clubs, like, hey, you should hear what they're doing at Penn Trafford. And yeah. So we had another club that were like, well, we could do better than, we told them the football team story. And like, we could do better than that. So they did a spaghetti dinner for the football team. And they asked the coach, we know you guys need to eat before you go to away games. Can we provide, dinner for you guys? And we also have a gift that we'd like to give to everyone. The coach said, yeah. So they got permission to use the cafeteria, and all the kids' parents made the pasta. Someone else's, one of the kids' parents made sauce. Someone else brought drinks. And so, the whole team comes in the cafeteria, in their jerseys, they're getting ready to get on the bus to go, right? They eat their spaghetti, and the girl who was the leader of the club, who I just saw her parents a couple days ago. This girl, she says, we're the Bible club here at school, but we wanted you guys to know we're praying for your game tonight. We're praying for your team, and we have a gift that we want to give you. And so they gave all of them a copy of the Gospel of John, and it wasn't forced. Nobody had to take it, but
right.
If you want it, we'd love to give this to you. And so here these guys are. They're sitting there in their jerseys, eating spaghetti, and they're reading the Gospel of John. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so we've continued to encourage students all over the region to do things like that, to find creative and fun ways to to show God's love as well as share God's truth, because and this, people are much more willing to hear what you have to say when they've experienced something that you've done for them.
Yeah,
Sure. So we really try to encourage students to, hey, come up with some creative and fun ways to do something kind for, whether it's a sports team, the musical, another club, whatever it is. Find ways to show God's love and then share God's truth. I could tell you stories all day long, which I won't do.
No. It's what I love about it is the reliance isn't on youth workers or adult leaders. I mean, this really is a program that the students lead and run themselves with the right guidance and whatnot. But you're asking students to be literally the hands and feet of Jesus in your schools. You go, you do the work, you reach out, you love on those, and those are the type of stories that are exciting because, for as a youth worker, all I hear is now here's another thing I have to do. But, for the students, that's really, I was talking with a youth worker, their main mission this year has been to actually create a student ministry where students are doing the ministry and the leaders are more there for guidance and direction, but it's the students. And I'm thinking that's really at the heart of it. It's what we're trying to do. But I think we just get trapped up in the idea that we're the ones that to do it. So I love that student outreach clubs are, student focused and student led. And I think that's awesome. That's kind of led to some really neat opportunities too, because you've hosted, I think the last 2 years, a student conference, or at least the last year, where students have come and they've talked to their peers, sharing their faith stories and doing some other things. And that's come out of the outreach clubs, has it not?
Yeah. So that was totally experimental. The idea was a conference for students by students.
Yeah.
And so we asked the kids who were the leaders of these clubs to plan a 15-minute talk on and we came up with a theme for each one, and so a talk that related to that theme, but just to encourage their fellow students to walk with Christ and to grow strong in their faith. And it's been really cool because I know you've seen this, Jay. There's something powerful about students encouraging other students. Kids just hear from other kids in a different way than they hear from adults, right? And I always encourage youth pastors. When it comes to these clubs, like you said, we don't want to give a youth pastor another thing to do. What we do want to give you is another tool in your discipleship toolbox that challenges your students. That we all have students that are in different places spiritually, right? Sure. They're in different places in their walk with Christ. But you have some kids who are ready for a challenge. In fact, if you don't challenge them, they're going to atrophy, and they're going to, they need that challenge to keep going, to keep moving. So, the student outreach clubs have been a way to, or our hope is it's a way for a youth pastor to say, listen, I see God doing incredible things in your life, and I believe God wants to do incredible things through your life. Here's a tool, something that you can do. I'll support you. Our church will pray for you. Our church will come around you and help you. But here's something you can do to grow and live out your faith. And so, but it's been amazing to me because the kids who are leaders of those clubs, man, they the last 2 years we've done this Momentum Conference. The talks that they've given they blow me away. I'm like, oh my goodness. So that's been fun. It's been fun to do.
Cool. Real quickly, and I want to hit one more topic before we're a little over our time limit, but there really is no time limits because network meetings go until they're finished, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I know your push has been to get a student outreach club into every high school. Are you guys doing middle school too, or just high school?
Yeah, middle school, sure.
Yeah. So your goal is to get them into every high school. How many active clubs do you guys have happening right now? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think there are 40 that are pretty active. And then there's like 10 to 15 more that we're working on. But just in this corner of Pennsylvania, there's like 190 school districts. So there's a huge it's a huge mission field for sure. And there's so many, there's organizations out there that do this, like First Priority and Youth Alive, National School Project. But those organizations aren't within reach of every school district in America. However, there are churches near every school in America. And so, yeah, our hope is just this is a tool that churches can take and run with. And if you're connected with some other ministry, FCA perhaps, great. Or I know you guys with Young Life.
Yeah,
great.
We've got huge Young Life presence out here.
Yeah, absolutely. So use that, leverage that for sure. But yeah, we just want to offer this as a tool. That's, if you don't have something else,
yeah, and what we'll do is we'll make sure that your contact information, we'll get to this in a few minutes here, but we'll make sure if you're listening and you would like to see a student outreach, or at least just investigate, you've got something happening at your schools, or maybe you don't have anything happening at your schools, but there's the way Travis has packaged this is, there's resources there to help you and help your students start one. And so we'll make sure to add that in the end. Last thing here just to bring up, and I'm probably not hitting on everything that you're involved in, but I believe you have a hand in Pittsburgh Christian events in some way, because I know you seem to always know what's going on in the area.
Well, that's that's just an email that we send out on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. We just try to let people know what's going on, what's coming up. We actually use it as a fundraiser for our ministry. So it's been we have people that they'll pay a small fee to advertise, but basically it's I mean, how many times have you heard people say, "Man, I didn't know that was happening"?
Yeah.
Right, all the time.
Yeah,
so
that's why I want to bring it up, because it is a great resource if you're in the Western PA area, because you do have a good running catalog of things that are happening in the area.
Yeah, that's what concerts and conferences, and some of the things are just it's stuff that small churches are doing, or it could be huge arena events. But we want to let people know, hey, here's what's up.
Yeah, so we'll, again, I feel like I said it like 3 times already. We'll have all the connections for that at the end and in the companion blog. Travis, I want to thank you for your time. Man, you really do have a heart and a passion for students and for youth workers. And I'm hoping that today people have had a chance to hear that. Moreover, my bigger hope is that not just for those who are in Western PA region, but youth workers will see the need and the value of being plugged into a network, and maybe get a little excitement to see their students doing some things differently, and plugging in with a students outreach club or starting a student outreach club. That was really one of the reasons I wanted to have you as a guest on the podcast, because I do think in Western PA, man, we are fortunate. There's a ton of things happening. Networking is strong, and it's really a neat place to do ministry in. And I know you have some roles in a lot of that. So on behalf of youth workers everywhere, thank you for your commitment and your passion and your just desire to see these things continue to take place, because if no one's driving it, then it's not going to go anywhere. And I think you are the driver for a lot of things that we see happening in this area. So thank you for all your work and your commitment to that.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate all of it. If I could, I'd love to pray for you and your ongoing ministry. And before we get off the call here, I'll ask you to, if youth workers want to connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that? But first, if you don't mind, I'd love to just pray for you and your ministry, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
God, we give thanks for Travis and his heart and his passion for students, for student ministry, for youth workers. Clearly, that was heard today. I'm thankful for the friendship that I have with Travis, and the many ways that he has encouraged me, the great resources and tools and events that he has helped to bring to light or to being, or just sharing the information. It's been so exciting to see how you have used him over all of these years in ministry. And so, God, I pray that you would continue to give Travis passion and a drive to speak into the lives of younger youth workers, to encourage them and connect them, to speak into the lives of students through the outreach clubs, and to really allow the things that were so so impressionable for him as a teenager that are clearly now the passion of his ministry. Lord, just continue to use those things to grow your kingdom in the Western PA area and then beyond that. So we thank you for Travis. Thank you for his ministry. And I just pray, Lord, that you continue to strengthen and grow him and allow him to serve you the way you've called him to. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. I do want to say thank you, Travis, for your time. If we want to get a hold of you, what is the best way that you would welcome someone to reach out to you?
I'll just give you my cell phone number. It's 724-322-1130. Yeah, just shoot me a text. I'd love to hear from anyone that's interested.
Excellent. We'll have that with the companion blog. So scroll down a little bit to the description for this week's podcast. Hit the link to the Youth Worker Daily website, and we'll have Travis's phone number and some more information about Travis and links to the things that he's doing in and around the Western PA area, particularly the student outreach clubs and the Pittsburgh Youth Workers Conference, two of my favorite things. So we want to make sure we highlight them for you. Travis, thank you so much for your time, my friend, and for your story and your willingness to share what God has done in, through, and with you and through the students that you're working with.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. It's great being with you today. Good to hang out.
Okay, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Like I said, Travis Deans is an amazing youth worker, and it was such a blessing to be able to sit down and talk with him and hear some of the things that God has been doing in and through his ministry and what he's doing now with the Ministry of Student Outreach Clubs and the Pittsburgh Youth Workers Conference. I'm definitely going to have Travis and the other guys from the Pittsburgh Youth Workers Conference on the podcast a little bit later as we get closer to that event. I would highly encourage you, if you are a youth worker in the Pittsburgh area, when this conference comes up in October, you're going to want to join us and be there. Super affordable, a full day of training from youth workers that are doing youth ministry in the region, as well as the guests that they're bringing in. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a fantastic day. And it's a great opportunity to bring your volunteers and your staff. It's a close conference. It's an affordable conference. You get lunch as part of all of that. It's just a great thing. And then, of course, take a few minutes after this and go over to the companion blog. We'll have some more links and information about Travis and how to reach out to him. If you're interested in working with your students in student outreach clubs, maybe you want to see something happening at the high school or middle school, or your students are asking, how can we reach our classmates? How can we reach other students? The student outreach clubs might be a great way for them to be able to do that. So go over to the website, theyouthworkerdaily.com, click on the link for today's episode with Travis, and you'll find all his links and information right there in the companion blog post. So go ahead and take a few minutes to do that. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching or listening today. Like I said in the beginning, this is episode number 8, and we are beginning to get a little traction, which I am super excited about. And I would just encourage you, if you are finding these podcasts to be encouraging, would you share them with the youth workers in your network or the youth workers that you know? Conversations with Everyday Youth Workers is just that. It's conversations with everyday youth workers. What God is doing in, through, and with you as a youth worker, with your students, just talking about everyday youth ministry. And so we are looking for guests, and if you would like to be on the podcast, all you do is just reach out to us. You can email us at youthworkerdaily@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on one of our social media platforms, or just go to the website and click on the link for Be a Guest, and I will follow up with you. We'll set up a time, and you can get to come and share your story right here on the podcast. All right, that's going to about do it for us today. As always, thank you so much for taking time to listen, until next time, have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday right here on the Youth Worker Daily.